Hello, everybody. James Rink here. So we have Randy Cramer with us today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the med beds. And I don't have an itinerary in front of me exactly what specifically is, but I guess it's more like a informal conversation. So, Randy, are you there?
I'm here. Yes, James.
Great.
Looks like you've been relegated to the broom closet there.
I had to find a good place to get Wi-Fi and everywhere else. I'm at the Fillmore right now. I'm performing tonight on stage, and so I'm backstage right now, trying to find a quiet place that still has Wi-Fi. But anyway, so if you don't mind that, it's just pretend it's a green screen behind me. Um, but yeah, so thank you, Randy, for joining us. So why don't you? I missed the first session, so you're going to just I'm trying to figure out what exactly have you already talked about, and where would you like to take this next?
Oh, okay. Captain Cramer has been talking about the holographic mid bits, okay? And now I think he would possibly want to touch on the subject of, which is very relevant to physics, the free energy special interest group, about the electromagnetic gravitational, anti-gravitational propulsion systems that you had remembered very well when you were in service with the SSP.
Right.
Sure. I mean, essentially, the two phenomenons that are used are the electrogravitic phenomenon and the magnetogravitic phenomenon. So electrogravitics is essentially running a high-frequency electrical charge, and without going into too much detail, anyone who's interested in replicating this wants to do their experiments probably to start in the terahertz range. But when you put that high-frequency electrical field through the fuselage of a vehicle, it actually changes the weight. It has this effect which creates an electrogravitic field which reduces the pull of gravity on the mass within the object, so essentially making it effectively, quote unquote, way less. The magnetogravitic system is the real propulsion system behind that. So magnetogravitics, the way I like to think about it, and there's a number of ways this can be built, is if you have something that's not unlike a washing machine drum, with an inner layer and an outer layer that are sealed chambers, and you have mercury in both chambers, and one spins clockwise, the other spins counterclockwise, and again you have some high frequency electromagnets inside the drums that also spin around and add an electrical current to that, so that you create this torsion field inside the mercury, which then creates the magnetogravitic field, which is essentially an anti-gravity field, so it creates actual propulsion or gives you actual lift against the pull of gravity. And then when you're in up in the air or in open space, it creates this field underneath the vehicle that you can sort of think of like a puddle of water, that the magnetogravitic propulsion creates this little field underneath, like a little puddle of water. And then when you lean in either direction, you're essentially flying on a slipstream. So that sort of the field that you're resting on top of becomes something that you slide on, and that gives you momentum in any direction, and gives you propulsion. So, which can also be, enhanced by thrusters that can give you push on that direction, on that slipstream, and give you greater travel, greater speed as you travel through space. But there's essentially two phenomenons, electrogravitics and magnetogravitics, that they put together in order to create, quote unquote, anti-gravity flying vehicles. That's the basics.
Mm-hmm. And this is on which faction? Is it the Germans faction, or is it the Rothschilds?
Everybody uses these technologies. Everybody uses electrogravitics. Everybody uses magnetogravitics. It's the standard.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that reminds me of is the Nazi bell.
Die
Right,
Glocke.
the Glock.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of the Glock is also that it was creating a 0-point field that was a time-space distortion field as well. So when you sort of add the compounds of different field generators within this technology, then you also end up with the advantage of not just being able to go through space really, really fast, but then you can sort of phase in and out of dimensional space as we understand it, or travel through time when you start messing with those 0-point fields, which you have to be careful for. You don't want to all of a sudden just like, send yourself back to 1,000,000 BC and not be able to get back, which has happened. So you don't want that.
Yeah, they call it traveling in vortex.
Yes, right.
Captain Cramer, what about the TR3s? I mean, are they powered by the piezoelectric crystal battery that is the anti-gravitics type?
Oh,
no, the TR3Bs are. Oh, I'm sorry. No, the TR3Bs are powered by a microatomic generator that's about the size of a dishwasher on a fuel cell that lasts about 25 years. And then they have atomic thrusters on the corners and a big magnetogravitic propulsion sphere in the middle. So that red sort of glowing light in the middle, that's, if you look up, if you ever see one in the sky and look up at them, the center of the vehicle is slightly distorted. That's the magnetogravitic field that you're seeing that's actually giving the vehicle lift. And then the thrusters out of the corners are what actually propel it in a given direction.
Again,
and on that note, I do have a question on the ship. Captain Penny Bradley was mentioning how there is the TR3B, TR3C, B, E, and up to H. She had mentioned last conference we were speaking to her about this, because I had seen, I wanted to see if you're familiar with this as well, Randy, a fleet of white ships that had a saffron strip on it, and they were triangular, but they were more elongated wing ships. Like, they were very elongated instead of a longer triangle, width-wise. And so I was wondering if you knew who those were coming from. She mentioned that she had some details, but maybe you could elaborate on what you know.
So are you describing something that's more the shape of like a boomerang as far as the width of it, or something that's longer and pointier?
They really were.
I'm trying to get a visual for what you're describing.
Sure. Yeah, I had to stare at it for a while, and they did hover. They did hover, and they are elongated triangles. As far as I could see, they weren't really boomerang. They weren't really that kind of shape.
Okay. I think I know the vehicle that you're referring to, but it's not something that I'm aware of is in wide usage. So I'd have to ask whose program are using those vehicles at the moment, because I don't think that like everybody's using them or they're cross-sectionally available. I don't think we have any vehicles that look like that at the moment. But I think I am familiar with a longer, pointy triangle vehicle that's white. That does sound vaguely familiar.
And not longer in length, but in width.
Oh, so just a really wide triangle.
Right.
Oh, okay. Now I'm thinking of something that's a pointy triangle, but all right, I'll have to ask about that.
Yeah, Penny had mentioned that they were that there's an Earth Alliance that flies around, and maybe it was part of them, and the Canadians use the white ships. But Elena had done a program on her YouTube about them, like 4 days later after I had seen them. And so I said, well, that's what I saw. I had never seen them before. So I said, wow. And she had also mentioned that she thought maybe it was Air Force as well. And that maybe the Earth
that's
Alliance.
entirely possible.
And I was just thinking about what they were using, and maybe that they're more advanced in the T3, R, B, C, D, E, H, E, S, H area. So if anybody else has any questions, go ahead. I do have more, but I'll give the floor to someone else if you like.
Right. Thank you, Tricia. James?
So what's going to happen to the airline industry, the commercial airline industry, well, not just nice, worldwide, if this technology was brought forth to the public? Could they retrofit those crafts, or would basically they would all be mothballed? Anyone? Randy, maybe?
No, we think that because Northrop makes the TR series, and we think that we can basically get Northrop to make a civilian version that essentially takes out all the super top secret communications and, you know, weapons and propulsion technology, and just has sort of a cut down basic flyer that can then be pitched to the commercial airlines. For sure. We think that can totally happen. We'd like to see that happen. That involves getting a few people around the table at once to get that to happen. But we think that it's absolutely one of the important next phases in this is to, you know, get these vehicles in the skies, you know, moving people around everywhere. And that's one of the things that will get people to realize that we live in the future and that we don't have to live in the past anymore, and that we're here by having these advanced vehicles as the way we get around through air travel. So we're talking to some people trying to get that to happen, and it's just going to involve getting the right people at the table to have a discussion about it so that can happen. But we'd love to see that happen.
What kind of speeds would these crafts go if we could retire commercial airliners and replace it with this new technology? How fast would it take? I don't know, maybe Mach speed, or how fast would it go from London to New York? Any ideas?
Oh, I mean, even some of the even some of the older TR series, I mean, can go 3, 4, almost 5,000 miles an hour, which is, you know, incredibly fast compared to what most aircraft that we currently have now can go. So yeah, we're talking about vehicles that can, you know, get around the world in, you know, a couple hours instead of, you know, 20 hours.
Most of the stuff that's still in the air is about 600 max, and that's about it.
I was
Right,
going to
as far as
say,
I
commercial
think
aircraft,
the Concorde went Mach 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Captain Cramer, like, since you live so close to Max Langenberg, pay him a visit and collaborate. I mean, perhaps he's got a craft that is going to be so good, you know?
I've talked to Max. Max is a great guy, but he has his own priorities and his own agenda at the moment. So we'll just have to wait and see what he wants to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I've got a question for you, Captain.
Mm-hmm.
About two and a half weeks ago, I was out on my nightly walk. I go out usually between 2 and 5 o'clock in the morning. I walk about 4 miles, about 6 clicks, and I observed a craft I'd never seen. I've seen several different types of UFOs recently. Usually some very small ones, emitting a white light. But this one was really unique because it was teardrop shaped, and it was emitting a light from the large part of the teardrop. In other words, the point was at the rear. It was propelling itself forward, wide part, and it was propelling itself with a light that was sky blue. And I had never seen a craft like that before in my life, ever. Any idea on whether that's one of ours or from somewhere else?
Oh no, that sounds like one of ours. We, you know, the fighters that we build tend to be, you know, teardrop shaped. They tend to either be pointy in the front or pointy in the back because they're more aerodynamic.
This was pointy in the back.
In an atmosphere. And which is the opposite of what we flew, which was pointy in the front, and the teardrop part was in the back. But you can do it the other way around too. Just, you know, it depends on engineering. But no, that sounds like something that we're developing as far as our more advanced fighter craft.
It wasn't an extreme elevation either. I've been a pilot before, you know, a private pilot, and it was probably I'm guessing it was somewhere in the range of about not more than 1,500 feet, maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
Similar to what you'd see a helicopter flying around it.
Right.
It wasn't very high up, and it looked to me like it was searching for something. Who knows what? I have no idea.
If it's that low, they probably if it's that low, they're probably scanning or looking for something because it otherwise doesn't need to fly that low. You know, just for flying purposes, it can.
And it
fly
wasn't
at any
moving
altitude.
fast either. It was going slow.
Yeah, that sounds like a search pattern. Sounds like it's looking for something.
Captain, you said that you were working with the SSB for 20 years. Were you stationed mostly in Mars? And you were describing how you went through it's not quite teleportation platform. It was like the jump gates, right? That got you to Mars within a short space of time. Would you want to touch a little bit on that?
Sure. No, I
The
spent 17
technology?
years in the MDF, which is the Mars. Sure. No, I spent 17 years in the MDF, which is the Mars Defense Force, and then I finished out my 20-year tour as a pilot, flying fighters in an air wing aboard the EDF SS Nautilus, which is essentially an aircraft carrier in space. And we did occasionally, when I was in the MDF, use a jump gate technology or a localized wormhole technology to transport people from one place to another from time to time. And then when we took the transport vehicle, the ship that we took from Luna Operations Command to Mars, that projected a wormhole in space and then flew through that. And so the trip was, a few minutes instead of hours or days, depending on how long it would take to get there at maximum speed.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. So all these technologies, which is so many, 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 many times more advanced than whatever any of us have seen here on the surface of the planet right now. According to what Corey Good was saying with David Wilcock when they were making the Majestic thingy movie, they were saying that there has been a mandate a permission for the release of these suppressed technologies, that it's going to be gradually released bit by bit, and because it's time now. So what do you think of that? I mean, is there some truth in there?
Some, sure. I mean, we think that the devil is in the details, as people used to say, or as my dad used to say. And so we find that there are people who certainly want to see this technology filter through. They want to see it released. There are people who don't want to see the technology filter through and released. So while that argument ensues, that essentially locks up the release of anything. So as long as there are too many people arguing about it, those technologies are going to just be just on the other side of a doorway that we still don't have access to. And just because we don't want to wait for that, we don't think that we're going to stand around and just wait for someone else to figure that out. That's why we would rather pursue these avenues of research and development to get them done on our own, because we think that in many cases, it's still feasible for some of these agencies to drag their heels for a really long time on some of this technology. And we think that we will get it there faster by just, reinventing the wheel from the ground up, as it were. So I think there's some truth in that. I think that just it's not set upon. It's not settled. The argument or the debate is not settled even between internal agencies who are deciding what to release or when to release it. My understanding is there's still a series of discussions and disagreements around the table to decide when and how and what technologies to release. So there's some truth in that, but I think it's a little more complicated. Anyone who says that, this technology is going to be released this year or by next year, that's not how we're seeing it. So I would love to see that. I'd be as happy to see that as anybody, but I don't see that as very likely given the number of people that have to be in agreement for that to happen. So, and a lot of people have to be in agreement.
I was wondering about something. What would happen if they did not release the technology? They keep it suppressed. Let's just look forward in the future, 50, maybe 100 years. What would happen to humanity here on Earth?
Well, if there were no others, bringing through of that technology from any other sources, I mean, we're looking at environmental, social, and civilization collapse. So the reason we know that those technologies have to be brought in is because we don't want to see environmental, global, social, and civilization collapse. So again, if they don't want to release that technology, that's why we're doing what we're doing, and other people are doing what they're doing, because we're going to come at it from the other side anyway. So they can drag their heels if they want. We'll make it happen one way or the other, but people who are smart will cooperate and want to help with that process so that they're not left out of the loop and People who want to make billions and billions of dollars need to get on board, because they'll make way more money cooperating and helping to release those technologies than they will by suppressing them.
Okay.
Well, whatever. Disinformation or truth or whatever from any sector or from anybody, I just want to applaud the fact that it's Corey Good and his people are organizing, and with David Wilcock organizing a global meditation for the release of suppressed technologies on the 11th of November. And I have to say that, and I would go for that, because we know that the mind is so awesomely powerful. And if it's a one mind consciousness thing in a group meditation, we might just be able to open up something to manifest on the release of the suppressed technologies. So shall we participate in that one? What say you?
Oh, that sounds like a fabulous idea.
Yeah, on the 11th of November, I suppose we have to go to their site and see how they organize it. And I've been calling out to our people to participate in that one. It doesn't matter who leads that, so long as it's done. We're going to have this mass meditation to have it released. Okay. Thank you.
My next question is, it appears the Rockefeller faction within MJ12 was part of the reason why we don't have the free energy technologies released to the public. And has that changed? Are the Rockefellers now allowing that to come forward? And also, what do you think about Stephen Greer's organization, considering he's also connected with the Rockefeller Foundation?
That's a difficult issue, but we would think, based on the information that we have at the moment, that while traditionally the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds have been, let's just say, unfriendly to everybody and more friendly to themselves, that again, we're starting to be able to explain to them that, look, if we don't change this now, you guys are going to miss out on, quadrillions of dollars, quintillions of dollars over the next half century, that, will make your families more poor and less rich, which they don't want that. They want to be more rich and less poor. And so the Rockefellers, we would suggest at this time that we've got them on the side of understanding that this has to happen. There has to be a protocol to move forward. And so they may be resisting some things or maybe doing things a little slower than we'd like, but we think that they're being at least part of the solution right now and not so much part of the problem. I think it was a big deal and very telling when they divested all of their petro money and got rid of all their oil investments, basically divested out of oil. That was a sign, for them to say, we're not doing this anymore. We're not being on this side anymore. We're getting away from fossil fuels, and we're not even going to be on the side of people who are making money off of fossil fuels. We're going to go this other direction. So we'd like to think that they're more on our side than not on our side at this moment, but they're mostly on their own side. And I think we've just done a pretty good job of convincing them that if they want to be on their own side, that it will behoove them to cooperate with this process, and that they'll do better over a period of time than by resisting the process. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to necessarily call them good guys or bad guys. Let's just say at the moment we believe that they are cooperating for a positive end result because it serves their own interest to do so.
Right. Eliza has some questions for you, Captain.
The first one is for Randy is, have you heard of the Nasicus magnetic thruster?
I've heard of magnetic thrusters, but that's a specific name I don't think that I've heard referred to. But again, I'm not a tech head for a lot of that stuff, and so it's not my speciality. It's something I have more general knowledge than specific knowledge about, but I've certainly heard of magnetic.
Yeah, and this one, it's something that Paul LaViolette talked about that actually had a larger energy density than the shuttle main engines that Professor Athanasios Nasicus did in Greece. He was also working on a Type 2 thruster, but he intentionally screwed up the experiment on that one, and I found that to be very interesting that he did that. So
very.
Yeah. And the other thing was that there's a guy by the name of Alan Holt. This is going back to 1981. And he put out a paper in the Second International Symposium on Non-Conventional Energy Technology. And it was on galactic propulsion, which is essentially, it's like a warp drive. But
Right.
he had a lot of details in this thing that got him in trouble with NASA. And I think after that, they put him in the basement. So,
okay.
yeah. So he was revealing stuff that he wasn't supposed to.
Gotcha. Yeah, go against the grain, man, and you become the tallest nail, and the hammer hits you on the head. So,
Randy, talking about that, you're the one who's going against the grain right now. We're bringing up.
well, no, except that I'm
But you have the
sanctioned.
clearance.
I have
Protection.
permission. I have people telling me that this is what I'm supposed to do. But
Hooray.
when you step outside of that and you don't have people supporting your decision, then you're certainly taking a risk there.
So you're saying
A
there
risk
are good
that I would
people.
encourage anybody to take. But
So you're saying there are good people on the top of the hierarchy as well, huh?
oh yeah, absolutely. Some. I mean, there are certainly some good people who understand that their job is to protect the planet, the people, and the solar system, and that you can't protect a civilization in collapse. You have to be able to protect the civilization that's in a state of function, not dysfunction, and that at some point you have to do these things if we're going to protect the planet, the species, and the solar system and civilization as we know it. You just have to. So yeah, of course, there's some good people there.
So it is correct to say that these people are, is the human race, and they are awakening very quickly now, because people like you, for instance, I mean, you said that you've been meditating since you were young, and the meditation.
I started about 11 or 12 years old. Yeah.
The third eye, the pineal gland is open, so therefore you could see and pierce through the veil and see through the deceit and the atrocities of what they're doing to the human race, the controllers of the planet, basically. So therefore, even people there at the top of the hierarchy, they are also like you, they're awakening, and they just want to do good because they then understood then in the awakening process towards ascension that we all go back to source. And that's just the one source.
Yeah.
And we all one.
There are certainly some. I can't attest to everybody, of course, in the higher echelons being that way, but we certainly have spent, United States Marine Corps Special Section has spent a majority of our years of existence cultivating our psionic abilities and learning self-mastery. There are a number of ET species have talked about their own history and the history in the intergalactic community that we understand. It's probably, if not certainly, the most important technology that we can develop is ourselves. And that as we develop ourselves, then that makes it easier for us to develop these other technologies for everyone else and for our civilization.
Or rather, we don't even need those technologies at all, because if all our
well, we will for a while.
It's reactivated.
We will for a while.
Yeah.
Well, but it's going to take a little while to do that. We know that some people think that that's a really fast process. It's not. It's a slow process. So it's still going to take a while for us to develop ourselves and our minds to not need spaceships. We're going to use spaceships for a while before we don't need them. But it's a continuing process that you just have to be on that journey of development and self-mastery, and having a lot of people participating in that. But it's going to take a while. So it's not like, we shouldn't be building spaceships because we're all just going to be able to teleport with our minds in a few years. No, we should be building spaceships because we'll all be able to teleport with our minds maybe in a couple of centuries. But it's going to take a while for the species to get there.
Captain, what do you see as far as looking ahead, as far as companies like Monsanto and its glyphosate killing the planet?
Well, there's actually, I think someone just pointed out recently that there was a lawsuit that was won against Monsanto. Monsanto lost.
Oh, there was.
Yeah, and they had to pay
$280 million, something like that.
Yeah, so let's hope that that's the kind of thing that'll, get them to stop using the glyphosate and stop using the things that are killing off bees and so forth. So, some of these battles will be hard fought and hard won, but that's what we're here for, is to, it's not going to be easy to just snap our fingers and get everybody to change. In some cases, we have to fight the good fight to get certain entities to change. And there are people who are fighting that good fight. So I consider that a victory in the right direction. And again, I think companies like Monsanto have a short-term profit model, which is not going to last long-term. So, at some point they're going to start losing money, or they'll go bankrupt doing what they're doing, and they may be making large profits for now, but it's not going to last. So
they're owned by
they'll
Bayer
have to
now.
change at some point.
They got bought out by Bayer probably because of all the lawsuits they've already mounted.
Oh, that's interesting then. Okay, so
That's it, which is a German
change
pharmaceutical.
a guard there that could. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're building next to my area, and hopefully that'll be transmuted and transformed soon. That might help explain a lot of the low-flying helicopters that fly above me all the time. Do you have any insight on low-flying helicopters, Randy, and what they're used for?
I live near 2 military bases. I have low-flying helicopters flying over every day. So depending on where you are, it's just a norm. I mean, I can go outside on any given day, and if I'm outside long enough, I will see a low flying helicopter flying, nearby or overhead or around the area. Yeah, so we're near 2 military bases, and we see them all the time.
Oh, I want to call Pontus. Oh, sorry, Tricia, you carry on then. Yeah.
Okay, I just have a really good question for Randy. One of them is, have you connected with the Native American Star Knowledge Wisdom Keepers at all? Because one of them is doing Starship technology with, I believe, ASU University out in Arizona, and her name is Tashina Itasha. Have you met her yet at any of the conferences?
Nope. No. I have not, and I have not been to any of those conferences. So, and I'll just say it's a large community sometimes, and there's plenty of people that I have not yet had a chance to connect with, and I'm happy to connect with those people. So if you know those people and want to get us connected, by all means, connect us up and let's start talking. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, they have an evolved way of looking at things with the do no harm clause and all of that. But yeah, her name is Tashina Itasha. She has a website called Galactic Healing.
Tricia, would you like to write that down on the chat?
Sure.
I would love to see your beautiful face if you could put your video on.
Well, I'm out in the boonies, and my connection's not so good, and I hate to drop off. The other thing is, Randy, another good connection would be, have you thought about the options of working with wellness centers and rejuvenation therapies and anti-age therapies? Because I am connected to a healing arts school that I went to over 20 years ago, and they've been around for that long, and they're great with doing grants, and they're into laser frequency technologies and just doing rejuvenation therapies. So I would think that would be a great opening and a great competition for these hospitals to, want to urge them to do that, as well as they're already set up for that. A lot of these spas are even doing chelation therapies, intravenously. So that would be a great option to get a grant.
Yeah, we do actually have a couple of wellness centers in the area that are doing some alternative therapies, and my chief engineer and I have discussed some of these, what are often just referred to as cold laser alternatives. And we have some ideas for some technologies that we would like to work on that could be integrated at that level for sure. So once we're able to start, actual full-blown, spending engineers all day, all week long working on these problems, we will be able to have some of these other components worked on too. Because it turns out that a lot of what we're going to be working with is laser technology. And so there's going to be some areas in where developing some of these components for these precision lasers will be crossing back and forth between a couple of different devices that we want to develop, including some of these cold laser therapies and psionic amplifiers and so forth. So yeah, I've given that some thought, and we plan on making those I already know some of the people locally who have these wellness centers locally, and as soon as we have some functional devices to share with these people and implement, we're going to be more than happy to do that. We think that's a fabulous idea. And yeah, we think of this as not a one road gets us to Rome. as it were, as the old saying goes, all roads lead to Rome. And so in this case, we think that there are a number of different roads that we can take that will still get us to the destination we want to go to. And that's absolutely one of the roads that we are thinking about. So good question.
Yeah, the schools are raring to go. Like I said, it's been over 20 years that they've been going, at least the one I've been to out here, and they're just ready and waiting to take over really the health and optimum healing, areas.
But your holographic med beds is a step forward to, and the next step will be rejuvenation, right? Because first it's just the healing, and then when everything's being healed, the body then is ready for the physical age regression. Are you looking in that direction as described by Ileana Star Traveler in her video of remembering?
We certainly have, and we have some protocols about that. One of the problems that occurs with rejuvenation technology, for example, if you take a person who is 75 years old and you rejuvenate their entire body to that of a 21-year-old, not just from the neck down, but from the neck up. So when that person looks in the mirror, they don't see a 75-year-old anymore, they see a 21-year-old. An unfortunate thing occurs in a certain number of those test subjects, which is they start acting like they're 21. Again.
No.
And I would suggest that it's not a very good idea to get a bunch of mature older people acting like they're immature, irresponsible 21-year-olds again, because that's what they look in the mirror and see.
Well, you're saying just from the neck up, the rest of the body is not able to.
Oh no, we can do it both. But what we tend to do is follow a protocol where we restore cellular rejuvenation to a youthful level from the neck down, and that once anybody's over 45, like from the neck up, you're never going to look younger than 45 or 55 again, because it affects the brain in a way in certain people that they look in the mirror and they see a younger, more irresponsible version of themselves, and they kind of are behaving like that younger, more irresponsible version of themselves. So we have some protocols about rejuvenation, and we're not. So there will be some rules against using the technology that we have to just make people younger for the sake of being younger, because it creates a neuroses in certain people that we don't want to see. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure that there will be some other people's technology that they will be happy to do that, and we'll see as a society kind of what happens when we go through that, and we'll have the growing pain of certain people acting irresponsible because they've been rejuvenated to their younger, more irresponsible years again. But we have protocols to try and ensure that that's not going to happen with our technology, because we don't want to have to deal with that. But I'm sure that some other people will.
Can you be rejuvenated?
I don't think everyone would be affected that way.
Could you go back?
There were two people talking there. Say again.
I said I don't think everyone would be affected that way.
No, it's not everyone. It's about a third. It's about a third of the test subjects are affected in that way, which is a significant number. So that's why we try to avoid it.
Can you go back younger than 21?
You could. You wouldn't necessarily want to, but you could. Yeah. For instance, most men don't do their best bench press when they're 25. They do their best bench press when they're 35. So actually, for males, ideal physiology is, from the neck down is more like mid 30s. So we kind of think that, we can kind of reduce people to, or rejuvenate people physiologically into their 30s, and men and women are perfectly happy to do that. And again, from the neck up is going to look a little older and more mature to your age. But my brigadier general is over 100, and he doesn't look a day over 55. So, that's how it works for him right now, and the rest of the command staff. They all look like they're in their mid 50s, but they're all over 100. Most of them are officers who served in World War II.
Oh, wow.
When I was 18, I was in my best shape, and I was in the Army Special Ops.
Right. So Pontus, you're so quiet. Do you want to join the conversation?
Well, I think most of my question was answered already. So.
Right.
Can you explain the process of actually making somebody younger? what do they actually do to the DNA? Is it some kind of scalar wave antennas? They reset an etheric dimension?
No, it actually doesn't even have to affect the DNA. All it really does is affect the cellular tissue. And so if you have a perfect model of someone's genetic profile, it will just restore their cellular tissue to a youthful vitality that's probably younger than what they are at the time. I mean, it really depends on how you set. Some of this is in the details of how you, what's the word I want to use? How you tune the technology, how you fine tune the technology to do what you want it to do. So, but it's essentially just using someone's genetic profile to restore the cells in their body to an ideal state. So at my age, late 40s, if I were to be using this technology on myself, we could fine tune it to, rejuvenate the cells in my body to whatever we want to tune it to, which for me, again, I'd be perfectly happy to, have my 35-year-old body back. Not that my 48-year-old body doesn't function very well. It does, but I'd be perfectly happy to have my 35-year-old body back.
So you're saying from the neck down, your body can be, re-age, but from the neck up, if it doesn't go through that process, then it wouldn't mess up the maturity of the personality?
Again, in about a third of the subjects that we've done tests on. So it's not something that happens all the time. It's something that happens about a third of the time, which is enough to not want to do it to everybody. We think it causes enough of a neurotic problem for that third that we'd rather not deal with that and become part of the problem on that one. So yeah, we kind of have a limit, our own policy of limitation on what we think you should age regress someone from the neck up. Again, so that when they look in the mirror, they see their older, mature self that's looking back at them, and that tends to keep them behaving in an older, mature manner instead of looking at their younger, immature self, which can tend people to start acting immature, like they're 21 again.
So this is attesting to the motherboard being in the brain rather than intelligence is in every cell of the body, yeah?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, oh, gosh.
Is this
technology to do with personal perception.
Mm-hmm.
Is this technology based on the Anton Priory magnetic Bordeaux machine, which allegedly he was able to re-age back people and mice back before he got shut down?
Yeah, that was my next question. Thank you.
No. My understanding is those are two different things. So without knowing a ton of detail about that, those are two different phenomena, I believe.
Yeah. He actually time reversed cells, but and also this guy Dan Winter, he's come up with this therapy device, which allegedly is based on that technology, but apparently it doesn't do what it's claimed. Do you have any information about the therapy? Or heard of it?
No, I have not spoken to Dan about that. That's the first time I've heard of it, and I will be curious to look into that and see how that's working or not working.
It's got a high voltage field. It's got two tubes with high voltage field. The problem is that those tubes ever explode in front of your face, you basically lose your face. Head bad. I don't think the magnetic Bordeaux machine had the same thing, but unfortunately they threatened the investors. That was like in 1972. And I think it was used in the secret space program, but they must have already had it before. I mean, any ideas when SSP started using this? I mean, it must have been, you said 1950s. They were already using this tech.
They were using similar or some types of advanced cellular rejuvenation technology since probably the mid to late 50s was when they probably had the first technologies that came along. They were either borrowing or getting from other species or reverse engineering, probably about 1957, 1958.
It's interesting that I'm just wondering, where did Bearden get the idea for the patent?
Good question. Yeah, someone might have helped him out with that. Someone might have had a conversation with him and given him some ideas. I mean, Tom Bearden's a brilliant guy, but he certainly has come up with some ideas that seem a bit farther and beyond than someone's life work could generate. So I don't say that with any insult to his intelligence. I think he's brilliant, but it seems like he's been able to come up with a few more inventions than someone's life work just developing from the ground up would be able to do. So without knowing for sure, I'd suggest someone's helping him out with that. You know, he's having some conversation with someone who's been helping out.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Which is good. That's a good thing. So let's yay for people who are helping out.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's the theory of the collective getting the same ideas at the same time, which circulates around and around. I see a lot of people who kind of go back and forth with, you know, other people feeling they took their ideas, and ergo, I believe the FESIG group, so that we can all just collaborate and coordinate and
That's right.
cooperate.
Sure, collective consciousness is a factor. Sure, absolutely.
Right. So Linda Moulton Howe was talking about in one of her lectures. She was saying that are we all living in a matrix, a computer simulation? So it's because you have been meditating ever since you were young, Captain, and you possibly would have pierced the veil and seen the big picture and how we were being trapped in this matrix. Could you talk a little bit about that? And how is it that you could remember everything and your memory is intact? You didn't go through the blank slate technology or whatever that they were using on the super soldiers? Like James couldn't remember.
No, sure I did. No, sure I did. The main factor in my case was that I was engineered and programmed to self-repair. And most people are not engineered and programmed to self-repair. So the minute that I was brought back from my 20-year tour is the minute that I was compelled on a personal level to start seeking out ways and means and techniques to self-repair and to get my memories back as soon as possible. Wow. So I started getting, you know, what I would say were flashes of memory almost immediately from returning of my tour, which took about a decade to get to a point where it was much larger chunks of information that started to, you know, paint a picture that was a little more like, oh, this is what's actually happening. And then it was probably another 10 years beyond that to total recall. So it's about a 20-year process, but about halfway through that, I would say I had, you know, enough memory to indicate, you know, what was going on, at least in a vague big picture way. And then over the next decade, achieved total recall. But that's mostly because I was engineered to self-repair and to heal myself, and obviously had some help with people who wanted me to get to that place instead of just, you know, trying to suppress my ability to get to that place. So a lot of people are just suppressed from that kind of growth. It was encouraged in my case. It was both programmed into me and encouraged. So that's why I get to be on that end of the stick for that one, because I didn't get it the same way everybody else was, which was to just be, you know, repressed and beaten down so that I wouldn't remember, but instead programmed to self-repair and given some support so that I would repair. So
the bosses were all right with your total recall? What about the others? Why is it that it's so important that they don't recall and you could?
Again, because that was what our program wanted to do, which was design a program that would have the subjects programmed and trained to self-repair, because we felt that it was a better use of human material to not waste those people by using them up until they couldn't be used anymore and they were broken and destroyed and then casting them aside. That it was more important to take the damaged personnel at that point and get them to self-repair and recover so that they could continue to be effective resource material. I mean, to put it in a calculating.
How was the programming done? Was it subconscious or what?
It's in a lot of different ways. Some of it is at the cellular and genetic level, and some of it is at a neurobiological programming level. It's on many levels in which that programming is put into the mind, body, and consciousness experience, so that it's on many layers so that you can't really get away from it. It's always going to be the ever guiding principle for what you're doing.
Right. James, do you want to wrap this up now? It's coming to the 1 hour recording.
We're at the end now. No more questions at this point. Well,
What happened to Fresh?
I just have one of the a fluff question, for the levity of the meeting. Captain Cramer, you ready for this one?
Oh yeah.
Were you? It's a two-part question.
Okay.
And it's tongue in cheek. This is just to help wrap up. Were you, when you were in space, were you on a multi-species craft? And number two, what was your best meal in space?
Wow, that's a really good question. So first answer to that is no, not a multi-species craft or vessel. It was all terrestrial humans. And probably my best meal that I ever had in space, I got to eat dinner with the captain one time, and it was prime rib. So I don't know where they got it, but it was really good.
Thanks.
Prime rib of what?
Yeah.
Which
well,
animal?
hopefully it was beef cows, but I mean, it could have been from something else that tasted like beef cows, but it was prime rib. It was good. I mean, I don't know. Could have come from anything for all I know, but tasted like beef, looked like beef.
Could have come from a strange planet you're not aware of.
Exactly. Could have come from a herd animal or something, some of raised meat product from some other world. I have no idea. I really can only
even human for all you
what
know.
people tell me.
Probably not.
I don't think it would have been human because it tasted like beef and not like pig. And since the Maori used to call us long white pig, I think that humans taste like bacon.
Oh.
So it didn't taste like pork or bacon. It tasted like beef. I don't think we taste like beef.
Apparently pigs have human DNA in them.
Right, yeah, or vice versa, yeah. So,
A rattlesnake tastes like chicken.
Everything tastes like chicken.
Yeah, that was a line out of the Matrix, actually.
Oh, well, this is a fun conversation we're having with you, Captain. Right, I think we will wrap it up now, shall we? Okay, I'll go around the table then, James, shall I?
Go for it.
Yes, okay. Right, Eliza? Any last unfinished business that you want to speak out?
I'm kind of reluctant to say that because every time I open my mouth and somebody hacks the site. But but yeah, I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, Captain, remember now, Eliza loves to work in your team once you get your funding together. I might want
I
to
won't forget.
myself.
Thank you.
What
And
say you?
I do have.
Go on, Tricia.
Okay, I have a question for a friend of mine who's dealing with my lab and a lot of AI throughout her body, and she was wondering if you would be able to be knowledgeable and pointing her in the right direction for some help with that, or if you had any advice on that.
Sure. Number one thing to do with AI stuff that's present in the body is adjust the pH. Acidic cellular structure, acidic bodies tend to be good hosts for the AI. So if you want to be not a good host for the AI, you want to change your body pH to more basic. So you want to change your diet to get more basic pH instead of acidic pH. That's the main thing to do in your body to fight the AI, is really change the pH in your body, because it can't live in the more basic pH. It has to live in the acidic pH. Anyone who's also having memory issues, really, there are certain things that can help externally, but the number one thing that's going to help is your own internal process. So hypnotherapy for some people is a great way to get down into some of these memories, but meditative states where you're bringing yourself down into your alpha theta range is the same as self-hypnosis, is the same as, going into your own consciousness without having to have someone guide you through it. So the difference between taking yourself on that journey and having someone guide you on that journey is the difference between external hypnotherapy and internal meditative process. And I fully encourage people to engage in a daily alpha theta meditative process so that they can recover their memories more precisely and more deeply. And it will create its own problems as someone is on that particular journey. It's going to be an up and down struggle because there are plenty of programs designed to keep you from doing just that. But I will just say that diligence and persistence is what will get you there. And just never quitting in the process, essentially understanding that you have this uphill climb that you have to make. And the only way that you're going to get there is by keep climbing, not stopping, and continuing to do that personal work. So I would fully encourage those two things. Adjust her pH to a basic level above 7. So, you know, you want to get like 7.5, 8, sometimes 8.5, if, you know, someone wants to be really specific about it. And really just developing their own personal daily meditative discipline process to get the best clarity that they can in their own memory retrieval, which again will take time, but diligence will pay off and they'll get there. There are some other things that I can do personally. If you want to get that person connected with me, there may be some things that we can do to accelerate that process, but the majority of it is going to be doing those two things.
Right. I am a very experienced certified hypnotherapist. You can contact me if you need help, and I teach self-hypnosis as well.
Great.
Right.
Okay, so great. And I'll direct her.
Tricia.
Yeah, I'll direct her to you. Her name's Ida, and she is going to be contacting you soon. I believe she already has an appointment with your assistant. And also on the alkalizing thing, there's a treatment that, or it's just a smoothie actually. It's lettuce, aloe vera gel, fresh, and avocado. And that's to heal broken bones and to, you know, so you don't have to have pain medication. It's an accelerator in all those areas. And would that be a great alkalizer that you could do for the body, would you say?
That's a good start. I mean, a lot of it is eliminating things that are acidic in the diet and increasing things that are more basic. So most people just have to do an assessment of their own diet, look at what they're putting in their diet that's, you know, acidic. Two good examples that I certainly have an issue, you know, with are sugar and caffeine. I love sugar and I love coffee, and those are things that will tend to make your pH more acidic. So you have to kind of watch your diet on those things and reduce them, you know, more than putting them in your body. And otherwise, just it's usually to get from a point A to point B, if someone's really struggling with that, is just going to be some revamping of their diet for a certain period of time. Could be months, could be a few years to really get reversal on that. But it usually involves some fairly radical changes in diet, because the AI is telling your body to eat, to be hungry for things that make it more acidic. So you're going to have urges and cravings that are going to be lead towards more acidic pH. So you got to turn that around. And it can be a difficult process because you're going to have to go against the cravings and urges that your body's going to want to eat and consume.
Honey is a lot better for you than sugar. Far better.
Right.
Diet.
Thank
you. And I'm looking forward to the day when we have only good, healthy foods that will support these efforts.
Sure. Thank you, Tricia. So we go around the table. Fred, you had your say, and who is okay, I can't read your name properly. Tron, can you speak up? Do you want to join the conversation? I mean, have your whatever you want to say before we wrap up this meeting. Okay, I have unmuted you. Do you want to speak up? We want to see you.
No, I'm good, thank you.
How did you know about this meeting? How did you get to join us here?
Well, I've been watching your site for some time. And originally Kevin up there in Washington, and I saw some of his materials. I get invites from you to come to the meetings.
Wonderful. And where are you from? Which country?
I'm here in the United States. I live down in Arizona, down in Mesa.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Welcome to Physics. Do join us again.
Yeah, I'm a senior electrical engineer, and I've been working on projects and things for years.
So if you could go to the website and click on join us, then I can then add you to the list. So you will get a report and the of the meetings and the invitation, the official invitation to join the meeting. I don't get your name. It says here your Omtron. Is that your name?
That's my handle. My name is Paul.
Paul. Paul, welcome to Physics. It's really lovely having you here. Right. Pontus?
I enjoy the conversations. I've been pretty busy the last 6 months working on a project.
Oh.
So, but I got a break now, so I get a chance to tune in to some of these things. And
isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much. And do share and spread the word, okay? Thank you, Paul.
I do.
Thank you. That's lovely. Pontus, you want to say anything?
Well, thank you. I'm fine.
Okay. And Thomas, your turn, Thomas.
Yes. Actually, I did want to say a few things. First and foremost, Captain, thank you so much. You guys are, pioneers of, we're all the same, you answered a, I guess, a subliminal question that I had, without me even asking it, about my pain, and I knew lowering my pH down from such an acidic level and superoxygenating my blood with food grade H2O and stuff like that would help out a lot. And I've got some. I just have
chambers. Just real quick, hyperbaric chambers are also good for that too. That's also going to hyperoxygenate your blood and your cells. Those are a good idea if you have access to one of those.
Yes, I wish I did have access to that. I'm actually dirt poor kind of my whole life. Don't like money. Don't really care about money. And I was, I remember some things from a few other lives. And I know that I'm a very old soul. I know that I've, done a lot, seen a lot, and been through a lot, even here on this planet. And I usually don't, come out and say things like this out in public and everything, which, because most of the most of the people out there are not acceptable. They're programmed, they're constantly being programmed, and they're constantly, being hit with some of these 5 gigahertz ranges and just completely being controlled. And excuse me, they really actually think that they're in control of their own life and stuff, and they're not. And then they get aggravated when anyone questions them because, well, like you stated, they don't like to be told no. You can't say that or do that. And but I'm with you, brother. Let's get all this out there. I'm not doing it for the money. I know no one else heard this during the break or anything. But from the 7 times that I've died, well, that's a man-made term, death. You can't really. But I have learned quite a bit about things that are to be and things that will be, and I just want to say, thanks, man. I really appreciate, what you're doing, what you're going to do. And I don't know you on a personal level. I honestly don't know anything about anyone in here except for Pontus. And thanks to him for the invite. And I'm sorry, Crystal. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Crystal, for the invite.
Thank you. You're welcome.
And I just want to say I really appreciate it. There's not many people out there that have the cojones, if you want to say that inappropriately.
You can say that. No, you can say that.
Stand up. Stand up. And I'm one of those people. Well, I'm sorry. I just cussed myself. I am one of those entities. You don't want to kill me. you kill this body, you're going to be in trouble. If I could remember everything, I believe everything would change very fast. And I am going to get with you, Crystal.
Yes, thank you.
After this, and I want to keep in touch with all of you guys. I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that with all of my heart. And maybe I'll come visit you tonight while we're sleeping.
You're most welcome, brother. It's so wonderful having you here with us. Thank you for joining us and choosing to be with us tonight. I mean, it's nighttime.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
And thank you, Randy. I mean, Captain Randy Cramer, you are wonderful. You are one of the bravest people we have seen and heard and talked to now. We have the shared mission that is going to make a huge, big difference to humanity if you are going to be really very successful with your mission. And we thank you for choosing to come here on the planet to do this mission for humanity. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. My pleasure. I am both duty honor bound and bound for my love for my planet and my people to do my work till the day I die, which will probably be a very, very long time from now. So you're very welcome. I'm happy to be here and part of the solution and not part of the problem.